Listen, pay attention. Chosen one. This is not a passing whisper or background noise. This is not another moment you can scroll past or dismiss. You have felt it, the fatigue that presses deeper than sleep can erase the weight that sits on your shoulders when no one is looking. The quiet tension that seems to seep into every choice you make. It has been real. You have carried it alone, and yet you have moved forward anyway. That is the first signal. You are being noticed even when the world is unaware. For months, perhaps years, you have experienced confusion that no explanation seemed to satisfy. Days blurred together, small decisions felt heavier than they should, and moments of clarity were punctuated by unexpected exhaustion. You may have thought this was weakness or stress or personal flaw, but it is neither. There is a structure beneath it, a pattern forming around you, and the time has come to recognize it. This message is not general. It is intentionally directed. You are not reading these words by chance. Chosen one, the isolation you feel is not a lack of connection, but a signal. The pressure you sense is not failure, but preparation. The fatigue you carry is not a mistake, but a marker that something within you is being consolidated, refined, and tested. You have already absorbed more than you realize, and yet you are still here. Still functional, still moving through a world that often seems indifferent to what you carry. You may have noticed subtle shifts, moments when energy drained unexpectedly, when your mind felt unusually scattered, or when relationships and responsibilities demanded more than you thought you could give. These are not random. They are the echoes of forces testing boundaries you were born to maintain. And yet, despite these strains, you continued. You adapted unconsciously. You stabilized. You maintained coherence when others around you would have faltered. That is your first proof. In the next minutes, you will begin to understand why these experiences have unfolded this way, why the weight pressed when it did, and how it shaped a resilience that is foundational to your being. This is a calm observation, not a dramatic reveal. You do not need to fear it, and you do not need to overexert your attention. Simply listen, recognize, accept the clarity that is arriving piece by piece. This message is personal. It reaches only those who have already been carrying more than ordinary burdens, those whose endurance has been tested without notice. It is not a general message for the curious or the casual observer. It lands on you intentionally. And as you continue, you will begin to perceive the invisible patterns that have guided your endurance, the currents that shaped your stability, and the reason you have emerged intact when so much was positioned to unbalance you. Chosen one. Remain still for a moment and breathe. Recognize the weight you have held. Recognize that your presence here is not coincidence. What you are about to hear is not theory. It is observation, reflection, and understanding crafted precisely for you. This is your starting point. There is no uncertainty about who this is for. This message is not aimed at a broad audience or an abstract idea. It is directed at you because what occurred did not happen around you. It happened to you. The pressure, the disruption, the unusual strain on your internal balance were not external events you merely observed. They involved your system directly testing how you hold yourself together when conditions shift without warning. You are addressed as the chosen one, not as a title to inflate you, but as a description of function. You were selected by circumstance, timing, and capacity to absorb something that would have destabilized many others. That selection was quiet. There was no announcement, no dramatic turning point. It showed up as responsibility without recognition, endurance without applause, and stability that operated even when you were not consciously trying to be strong. What makes this clear is not how hard you struggled, but how little you collapsed. You may remember moments where you felt close to depletion, yet you never fully unraveled. You continued to show up to think clearly enough to act with restraint, even when your internal resources were being taxed. This is not accidental. It points to an automatic strength, a baseline resilience, that engages before conscious effort is required. Most people rely on deliberate coping. They brace themselves, talk themselves through difficulty, or look for external support to regain balance. You did not always have that luxury, and yet something within you regulated the pressure without drawing attention to itself. You stabilized before you panicked. You adjusted before you broke. Often you only realized how much you had endured after the fact. This difference matters. It shows that your stability is not dependent on ideal conditions. It operates under strain. It functions even when clarity is partial and energy is limited. You may not have labeled yourself strong, but your system behaved as though it expected to survive. That expectation was built in, not learned in the moment. There is also no need to question whether this applies to you. If you have felt an unspoken weight that others could not see, if you have maintained composure while internally stretched, if you have sensed that something was testing you without ever fully overwhelming you, then this message aligns with your experience. It is not about belief. It is about recognition. You were involved directly. Your inner structure was engaged. And the fact that you are still coherent, still present, still capable of reflection, now confirms something important. What was meant to disrupt you encountered a system already prepared to absorb impact and remain intact. This is not something you adopted recently. It has been part of you for longer than you realized. Consider the moments when your body or mind signaled strain, when your thoughts felt heavy, your energy seemed to dip inexplicably, or a tension settled across your chest or shoulders. You may have labeled these sensations as stress fatigue or even personal inadequacy. Yet what you experienced was not a flaw. It was a signal, a message from your own system, indicating that pressure was moving through you, not against you. Chosen one. The very discomfort you noticed is evidence of processing of absorption. Your nervous system, your emotional structure, and your attention were all engaged in a quiet negotiation with the environment. Each symptom, the headaches, the restless nights, the subtle anxiety, was a marker that something external or internal was attempting to disrupt coherence, and yet you did not collapse. You continued to operate, to perform, to fulfill responsibilities, even while under strain. That is not coincidence. That is functionality under pressure. Physical sensations were only one part. Emotionally, you may have noticed fluctuations, brief irritations, sudden exhaustion, or unexpected sadness. None of these were signs that you were failing. Instead, they were the surface-level ripples of a system maintaining balance under conditions that would have overwhelmed many others. These symptoms were markers, not judgments. They indicated that energy was being redistributed, regulated, and contained. The confusion you felt, moments when decisions seemed heavy, when priorities blurred, when clarity was momentarily elusive, is part of the same pattern. The mind does not always register structural processing as calm insight. It registers tension. And because your system was absorbing and managing unseen challenges, the sensations of pressure were natural byproducts. They were signals that work was being done internally, even if you could not see the results immediately. Recognize, then, that what felt like vulnerability was actually information. Your body and mind were communicating the flow of forces, the redistribution of energy, and the endurance of strain. This is a different way of seeing your own experience, not as a problem to fix, but as a signal to interpret. The aches, the fatigue, the fleeting irritability, all of it is part of a larger story, one in which you are not failing, but actively maintaining coherence amidst unseen challenge. By reframing these experiences as signals, you remove confusion and self-judgment. You stop labeling yourself as weak or inadequate. Instead, you begin to see that every sensation, every fluctuation, every fleeting doubt is part of a system functioning precisely as it was structured to function. You were not struggling for no reason. You were absorbing, integrating, and remaining intact. This is the first key to understanding the full scope of what has occurred around you and through you. Chosen one. The pressure you felt was not random. It was deliberate, coordinated in its timing, and subtle in its execution. Not in a sensational way, but in a structured, almost imperceptible manner. Events, responsibilities, emotional triggers, and mental fatigue aligned in ways that, if left unmanaged, could have overwhelmed you. Yet you remained functional. You continued to think clearly, act decisively, and maintain composure even when circumstances were intentionally stacked to test your limits. It is important to understand that this was invisible pressure. There were no announcements, no warnings, no external proof. You may have noticed patterns, certain days heavier than others, some weeks more draining recurring cycles of tension that seemed beyond explanation. These were not accidents. They were structured interactions with your energy, your focus, and your resilience. The forces at work were not mystical or dramatic. They were systemic. They challenged the ordinary boundaries of your capacity, calibrated precisely to measure how you maintain stability when conditions fluctuate without notice. You may have felt like you were walking through fog, making decisions with partial clarity or managing tasks that required more energy than you thought you had. This is exactly where your resilience revealed itself. Functioning under pressure is not about heroics or self-push. It is about regulation, adaptation, and maintaining coherence in the presence of repeated disruption. You did not collapse under these conditions, and that is significant. Your system absorbed, processed, and managed impact silently, without fanfare or conscious recognition. This is why fatigue, tension, and isolation felt real to you, yet never entirely unmanageable. Your ability to remain functional amidst this pressure is evidence of an internal structure that operates without conscious effort. You did not always notice it, and you may not have credited yourself for it. But the reality is that your stability under sustained, coordinated pressure is not common. Many individuals exposed to even a fraction of the same conditions would have exhibited breakdowns, confusion, or withdrawal. You did not. Timing played a critical role. The challenges did not appear randomly. They arrived in sequences and cycles, testing both immediate reactions and long-term endurance. You navigated them without losing presence or clarity. Each time you adapted, you reinforced the pattern your system is designed not just to endure, but to absorb stress, to process impact, and to maintain functionality under conditions that would destabilize most others. This observation is neither exaggeration nor mysticism. It is a grounded recognition of the way your mind, body, and attention have coordinated to manage forces that were always intended to disrupt. And yet, you remained intact. This is the foundation upon which all further understanding of your experience will be built. Now it becomes necessary to slow down and look carefully at what actually happened, not as one overwhelming blur, but as a series of specific pressure points you moved through without losing coherence. When pressure is unnamed, it feels chaotic. When it is broken down, its structure becomes clear, and what becomes clear is not how much you struggled, but how consistently you remained regulated. The first pressure point was doubt. Not dramatic self-doubt, not identity collapse, but subtle erosion. Small questions about timing, direction, or whether your effort was worth the cost. Doubt did not arrive loudly. It showed up quietly in moments of pause in the space between decisions. What matters is this doubt passed through you without rooting itself. You noticed it, but it did not hijack your behavior. You continued to act, to decide to move forward. That is not accidental. It means your sense of self was not dependent on constant reassurance. It was stable enough to tolerate uncertainty without unraveling. The second pressure point was fear. Again, not panic, not paralysis. It was anticipatory tension, a sense that something could go wrong, that consequences might arrive without warning. Many people respond to this by shrinking over controlling or avoiding action. You did not. You acknowledged the risk, internally adjusted where necessary, and still remained present. Fear did not dictate your choices. It informed them. That distinction is critical. It shows internal authority rather than reactivity. The third pressure point was energy drain. This one was physical and emotional. There were days when motivation dipped without explanation, when rest did not fully restore you, when your reserves felt thinner than usual. This is often where people begin to fail themselves. They either push until burnout or disengage entirely. You did neither. You modulated. You slowed where needed, conserved energy where possible, and continued functioning without dramatizing your fatigue. This demonstrates an internal regulator that prioritizes sustainability over impulse. The fourth pressure point was isolation. Not necessarily being alone, but feeling unseen. Carrying responsibility without feedback. Managing internal strain without external validation. This is one of the most destabilizing conditions for most people. Humans are wired for mirroring. You endured long stretches without it. And yet, you did not collapse into resentment or withdrawal. You maintained composure. You stayed aligned with your values. That tells us your sense of grounding does not rely entirely on external confirmation. The fifth pressure point was delay. Progress that seemed slower than it should have been. Outcomes that took longer to materialize. Effort that did not immediately translate into relief. Delay is corrosive because it creates the illusion that nothing is happening. You experienced that illusion and still continued. You did not abandon your internal rhythm. You did not force premature conclusions. You stayed engaged without forcing resolution. That requires patience, rooted in internal coherence, not blind optimism. Across all 5 pressure points, one pattern remains consistent. You stayed regulated. You did not fragment. You did not lose self-respect. You did not become unrecognizable to yourself. That is the key observation. What was applied to you did not break you, because it could not find instability to exploit. Your system absorbed impact, redistributed strain, and maintained continuity. This is not about toughness. It is about structure. And the fact that you moved through these pressure points without losing yourself confirms that the foundation you stand on is not fragile. It is already formed. Now take a moment to step back and observe the totality of what you endured. Look at it not as isolated events or fleeting discomforts, but as a coordinated sequence that tested your coherence, your patience, and your internal regulation. When reviewed in this way, the picture is clear. You maintained stability, not by luck, by chance, or by circumstantial convenience. You maintained it because your system, the combination of mind, body, and attention, functioned as it was always designed to function. Reflection shows patterns you might not have noticed in the moment. You responded consistently, even when the stressors varied in type and intensity. You did not overreact to fear. You did not collapse under doubt. You did not allow fatigue to dictate your decisions, and you did not allow isolation or delay to derail your presence. Each instance contributed to a broader confirmation. You are coherent under strain. You are present under pressure. You are functional when conditions would overwhelm most others. Notice the absence of randomness. The timing of challenges, the alignment of tension, the subtle adjustments you made in response. They were not chaotic. There was structure. Your ability to maintain function amidst this structure shows internal calibration. It is the kind of stability that only becomes evident in retrospect when you analyze the sequence with calm observation rather than reactive engagement. Moreover, this reflection removes the need to attribute success to luck or external circumstances. You were not lucky to survive, nor did someone else guarantee your stability. What happened unfolded because your internal system's attention discernment, self-regulation, were sufficiently developed to engage automatically. Your resilience was operational before conscious acknowledgement. That is a rare but natural capacity to function effectively without needing to summon it actively. By reviewing this now, you gain clarity. What you endured was significant yet manageable. It was impactful, yet did not fracture you. Your coherence was intentional, internal, and consistent. This is not ego. This is observation. You do not need to inflate your role to recognize it. The facts themselves show that your system maintained balance while processing pressures that were unseen, continuous, and in many cases, deliberate. As you hold this perspective, recognize the broader implication. You have demonstrated a foundational capability that allows you to engage the world with awareness and stability. You have proven to yourself that endurance is not contingent on circumstances. It is a structural feature of your being. You do not need validation, dramatization, or recognition to know this. The evidence lies in the simple, undeniable fact you remained intact. This review and confirmation is a quiet acknowledgement, but it is profound. It shows you who you are in practice, not just in theory. You are stable. You are functional. You are coherent. And this understanding will anchor the next phase of reflection, where comparison and rarity begin to illuminate just how uncommon your response truly is. Chosen one. Consider how most people respond when exposed to even a fraction of the pressures you have navigated. Doubt can spiral into indecision. Fear often triggers avoidance or overcompensation. Energy drain leads to withdrawal. Isolation can break resolve. Delay frequently provokes frustration or panic. These responses are common, predictable, and in many cases, unavoidable. Most systems collapse under stress before coherence can be restored. Now reflect on your experience. You moved through these exact pressures and yet remained functional. You continued to act, to process, to make decisions, to maintain attention. You did not overreact. You did not fracture. You did not rely entirely on external support to stabilize yourself. What you sustained is uncommon, not because you are extraordinary in an abstract sense, but because your internal calibration allowed it. Your stability is not a performance. It is a baseline feature of how you operate. This rarity does not require self-exaltation. It does not mean you are better than anyone else. It simply means that the structural integrity you carry is uncommon. Many people are forced to develop coping strategies over time to reach even a fraction of this level of coherence. You maintained it instinctively. Your presence remained constant, while the external and internal pressures fluctuated unpredictably. Recognize that this ability to stay present under conditions that would destabilize others is a form of natural containment. You did not need to prove yourself or perform heroics. You did not need to manipulate outcomes or assert control over the uncontrollable. You simply remained yourself, functioning, coherent, aligned, and attentive. That is why what you have endured does not resemble the typical human experience. You have been able to maintain balance where others would have faltered. Yet this observation is factual, calm, and grounded, not glorifying or mythologizing. This comparison illuminates the significance of your endurance. It shows that your resilience is not an acquired skill in the moment of crisis, but a consistent capacity embedded in your system. You have been tested in ways most will never experience, and your coherence persisted naturally. That is the quiet evidence of how rare your baseline stability truly is. Chosen one. This is the stage where recognition is enough. You do not need to act on this realization yet. You only need to see it clearly. Your ability to remain functional, attentive, and composed under continuous coordinated pressure is uncommon. It is not exceptional by design. It is uncommon because it is not replicated easily in ordinary human systems. And that rarity matters because it forms the foundation upon which the next insights, understandings, and applications of your endurance will build. Now, it is essential to clarify exactly what this stability represents. Chosen one. The resilience you have demonstrated is not an activated response. It is not a special power you turned on in moments of strain. It is a baseline feature of your internal structure. It operates without drama, without conscious exertion, and without external recognition. Your coherence is a product of preparation maturity and an integrated internal system that has been forming quietly over time. Think of it as a natural architecture. The walls, beams, and supports of a building do not announce themselves when a wind or vibration presses against them. They simply perform their function, absorbing impact, redistributing stress, and maintaining integrity. That is what your internal system has done. Your mind attention and emotional regulation have coordinated automatically. You did not need to consciously summon strength. It was already present, built into the baseline of your being. This distinction matters because it removes the need for heroic narrative. You did not activate under pressure. You did not need to summon an extraordinary effort to remain stable. What you experienced was the normal function of a system that has been shaped over time by practice awareness and subtle calibration. You are not superior. You are structured. That structure has allowed you to navigate challenges that would destabilize most others. There is also a continuity to this identity. You are not suddenly resilient because of recent events. The capacity to absorb process and maintain balance has existed across time even when you were unaware of it. Your system has been preparing for situations exactly like the ones you have experienced, aligning resources, regulating energy, and sustaining presence in a way that feels automatic because it is. Chosen one. Internal coherence is not about external validation, dramatic performance, or visible achievement. It is about consistency under pressure. It is about maintaining identity, attention, and function when circumstances fluctuate unpredictably. And that is what you have done repeatedly, silently, and reliably. This is the stage where you can lock in your understanding of yourself. You are not fragile. You are not reactive in ways that destabilize you. You are not dependent on external confirmation to maintain alignment. You are coherent. You are integrated. And this baseline structure is the foundation upon which you will continue to build. Engage and navigate the complexities of life without unnecessary strain. Now, with that foundation understood, it is time to begin integrating this awareness into daily life. Chosen one. The clarity you have gained about your resilience and internal structure can guide practical choices, allowing you to maintain balance rather than constantly brace for pressure. Integration is not about hypervigilance or overcorrection. It is about calm orientation. First, rest. True rest is not merely the absence of activity. It is the conscious allowance for your system to reset, to redistribute energy, and to process experience without interruption. You have been absorbing more than you realized. Give yourself periods of intentional stillness. Let your body and mind recalibrate. This will make your innate resilience more sustainable over time. Second, discernment. Observe the patterns of energy, attention, and stress in your life. Recognize what truly requires engagement and what can be released. You have been managing forces that were designed to challenge your coherence. Now that you understand your capacity, you can choose with precision where to apply your focus and where to step back. Discernment allows for efficient energy allocation rather than reactive overextension. Third, boundaries. Protect your internal system by setting limits that support your stability. These are not arbitrary restrictions. They are calibrated measures that preserve function. By delineating what you allow into your mental, emotional, and physical space, you prevent unnecessary depletion and maintain the conditions for coherence to operate naturally. Fourth, patience. Change, growth, and integration do not require acceleration. Your system has already demonstrated endurance under continuous pressure. Now let time do its work. Observe how shifts unfold without forcing outcomes. Patience is an acknowledgement that processes, both internal and external, operate according to rhythms that cannot be rushed. Fifth, focus. Apply your attention intentionally, guided by the knowledge of your capacity and coherence. You have been tested in ways that confirmed your functional structure. Direct your focus where it matters most. Allow peripheral noise distraction and irrelevant stressors to pass without engagement. This practice strengthens the operational efficiency of your internal system. Finally, reflection. Periodically review experiences, pressures, and responses not as failures or deficiencies, but as data points illustrating your functional structure. Reflection is not rumination. It is calibration. By observing how your system absorbs processes and maintains coherence, you reinforce awareness of your inherent stability and prepare for future integration of awareness into action. Chosen one. These practical perspectives are not dramatic prescriptions. They are calm orientations that support the quiet strength you already possess. By resting, discerning, maintaining boundaries, exercising patience, focusing attention, and reflecting regularly, you allow the innate structure of your system to operate with efficiency and ease. Integration is now less about responding to unseen pressure and more about living from a place of informed awareness and stable presence. Chosen one. Take in this understanding fully what you have absorbed, processed, and endured has left you intact. The forces that were positioned to destabilize you did not succeed. The weight that could have overwhelmed most individuals instead became a part of your internal calibration. You are coherent, centered, and aligned even after exposure to conditions that would unsettle others. Affirm this quietly to yourself. I am intact. I am functional. I am present. These are not declarations of bravado. They are factual acknowledgments of the reality you now observe. Your stability is confirmed by what you have lived through and what you continue to navigate. Let these statements settle within you. Let them anchor the understanding that your system has already demonstrated its capacity to manage strain, to maintain coherence, and to emerge from pressure without compromise. If you feel compelled, mark this realization externally. Comment 777 or I remember as a signal to yourself that you acknowledge this truth. This is a simple, grounded action that reinforces the integration of awareness into conscious recognition. It is a small confirmation that your observation matches reality, that your internal system is validated by reflection. As you move forward, carry this understanding with quiet confidence. You do not need dramatics, external recognition, or validation to know your coherence is real. It exists within you. It has been tested, observed, and confirmed. And as you encounter future challenges, this awareness will serve as a calm reference point, reminding you that your system is capable, prepared, and resilient. Finally, continue engaging with material ideas and perspectives that support your ongoing awareness. Subscribe, explore, and participate in resources that reinforce clarity and understanding. Each next step is best taken with the knowledge that your baseline stability is already intact. You are not starting from zero. You are building from a foundation that has been proven quietly and consistently across time and circumstances. Chosen one. Let this be your closing reflection. You have absorbed what was meant to challenge you, and you have remained whole. Repeat quietly if needed. I am intact. I am functional. I am present. Carry this into your day, your week, your life. And when you are ready, move forward with awareness, grounded confidence, and calm certainty.